quick question before we start. Have you ever tried to simply exist, but your jumper is biting your neck, your socks have chosen violence, and the texture of your lunch has made your brain going on a strike? Yeah, then you're in the right place. You're listening to the Spacious Brain podcast, where real neurodivergent humans with real jobs and real daily chaos overshare with pride. Minus the glossy, my ADHD is my superpower nonsense. Hi, I'm Noemi, a scientist, a neurodiversity coach. Yes, someone who will absolutely derail into a story from when I was 12 because I'm ADHD and tangents are my love language. If you ever felt alone or felt like the Temu version of neurodivergent because you're not an entrepreneur, not a CEO, and you forget to eat and drink on the same day, you're in the right place. Let's keep this real. In this episode, I'm joined by Kelly, software engineer apprentice, horror fan, gamer, and a skilled pattern spotter. Kelly was diagnosed autistic in her late 20s after years of feeling different, being called weird, and struggling with sensory issues. We talk about childhood, situational mutism, the cost of being misunderstood, the way neurodivergent people can become vulnerable to being used or excluded, and what happens when one painful moment keeps looping in your brain like a DVD menu from 2004. Kelly also shares her journey into tech and how a specific interview process felt calm, inclusive, and human. We also talk about sound sensitivity, quiet spaces, fidget rings, parenting, and why "How was your weekend?" can feel like a suspiciously polite trap. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'll start with the first usual question, and that is, who is Kelly?
So my name's Kelly Howes. I'm a software engineer apprentice for Compare the Market.
Anything more that you want to share about yourself?
I like to game. I really like films and TV programs, especially more horror and detective, paranormal, psychological. Yeah, that kind of thing. I'm not a rom-com type of person. Very much horror. If there's blood, I'll love it.
Perfect. I'm with you on that.
Maybe I should have started with, "Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm a vampire. I like blood." No, not really. I
That would
do.
have been
Not that
interesting.
I like blood, but I like horror and gore.
And when did you get your diagnosis and what brought you to seek one?
So I got my diagnosis 13 years ago, or almost 14 years ago. And it's something that basically all my life I felt different and that I wasn't the same as other people and couldn't understand why. Why couldn't I just be normal like other people? And I always had that feeling, always had sensory issues, which I didn't have a name for that. It was just, I don't like certain fabrics. Noises like upset me. I didn't know what it was. And it was an article that I read about Asperger's, and it was like, this sounds a lot like me. Not exact, but very similar. And I started reading more and more about autism, and it's like, maybe that's what it is. And I started doing things like the autism quotient test and what's the other one, the emotional quotient test, like all those different tests that you can do that can give you an indication. It's not a diagnosis, just like maybe you should look into an assessment. So yeah, because I think the cutoff, I'm not sure of the numbers, but my numbers were quite high. So it's like, okay, I think this is what it might be.
And how old were you when you got your diagnosis?
So I was 28, yeah, 28, I think.
And what was your initial reaction once you got your diagnosis? How did you feel after it?
Fine. It was just like, I think it was the relief of, okay, I wasn't wrong. Because there's always that little like nagging doubt of, oh, if it's not this, then I'm just like it. So yeah, it was very much like, I knew it. I knew that's what it was.
And you touched briefly about you as a child. So how were you? What do you remember?
I think I did a talk at work about being autistic, and the way I described myself was I was a very weird child. Like my mum had to peel grapes. I wouldn't wear socks. obsessions and things had to be a certain way. Like, really, I suppose looking back, you could say maybe I was difficult, but no, and now it was just my autism.
And how were your relationships as a child? Growing up, did you have any friends, and how did you navigate the like social cues, for example?
Yeah, I didn't have friends. Like the very rare time when I thought I had a friend, it was usually someone wanting to like make fun of me or just use me in some way. The closest thing I had to a friend, I wouldn't say she was a friend because she made me feel bad about myself and she made me do things like skip school, so that wasn't great. So not that I don't think that was like she intended to, but it's kind of like falling in with a bad crowd, that kind of
Mm.
situation. Like I didn't want to do these things, but I didn't have a way of getting out of it. And that was like, to me, it's like, but she's my friend. And it's like, but she's also making you do things you don't want to do. So that was basically how it was. As a child, my cousins were my friends. Like I've got a very big family. So yeah, we used to have sleepovers so that I didn't like, it wasn't like a completely lonely childhood. So I did have, other kids sort of my age I could hang out with.
And the fact that you talked about these people taking advantage of you or making fun of you. How do you now see the connection between being neurodivergent and the boundaries or the vulnerability? Do you think there is one?
Yeah, I think I mean I've read about things where like abusers kind of pick up on people who are vulnerable and easy to manipulate. So yeah, that's I think there's definitely a correlation there between neurodivergence and being a target basically.
And the difference with the relationship with your cousins is, do you think it's, of course it's because it's blood, right? So it's somehow automatically easy, but do you think that there is that level of they're part of my family so I can be myself without having to fit in?
Not at all. No. So even with them, there was a lot of times when I was excluded because I was weird or I wanted to do or play a specific thing. And they were like, well, we don't want to do that. So we're going to go off and do something else. Like I had quite a few cousins and yeah, there's a few times when it wasn't very nice.
And how did you feel about yourself?
It was sort of divided. Sometimes it was like, if it was like an obsession thing, so if I really wanted to play with like my ponies, then I didn't care. It's like, well, I want to do this, so yeah, you go and do whatever. I don't care. And other times, usually like later on, I'd start reflecting back and think, well, why did they treat me like that? Why don't they want me to join in with them, or why would they do what I want to do? So there was a lot of like negative thoughts, normally afterwards rather than in the moment.
And is that something that stuck with you? Because one of the things that I remember clearly as being a child, and I still do it to this day, is that when something really upset me, you're right, it's not immediately in the moment. In that moment it kind of like freezes me, but then it kind of gets stuck and I get into this loop that I can't get out of, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Did
Yeah,
you feel
definitely.
the same?
Yeah, definitely. Even now, it's yeah, one thing might happen, and I will just dwell on that and just yeah, it doesn't matter. Like the good things that might happen, there'll be that one thing, and it's like it'll just repeat and repeat, and say, oh well, maybe if I did this differently, or said this, or done that, or whatever the situation might be, maybe things would have been different.
And how was school in all of that? Because many people that I spoke to, and they said that, oh no, at school I was great because I managed to hide it, basically all of my ADHD traits. Or no, at school was great because I was the model student. So how was it for you?
So for me, it was, I don't really remember primary school, like the feelings there, but I didn't speak in primary school. So I had situational mutism. And I've only got like vague memories of my mum being brought in and the teacher being like, there's something wrong with her. Why won't she speak? And my mum being really confused because at home, I wouldn't shut up. So she was kind of like, what do you mean she doesn't speak? And then she'd kind of like, you need to speak in school. And like, we've talked about this since my diagnosis, and she's been like, she thinks what happened was it was a combination of like me taking something literally and then just kind of getting stuck in a loop. So being told, you're here to learn, not to talk. And I've taken that literally, like, I think that was in the first few days, and then just didn't talk. And then it just became like an anxiety thing and it just built. And yep, didn't speak during primary school. Secondary school, I just really made a conscious effort to try and be different there and not repeat the same thing. And yeah, it kind of went the other way and it went into the wouldn't shut up. That was like clearly in my year seven first report, my form tutor was like, yeah, she's doing brilliant. She's really smart, but she needs to learn to shut up because it's too much. I was like, okay, well, this is different. And again, my mum was like, right, what a contrast from primary and secondary. But yeah, at secondary, it was difficult again, like not having friends and then having that one friend who encouraged me to like skip lessons because she didn't want to go and just fell into that trap. So I started off in year seven, I was doing really well, like especially in maths, which was always a subject I wasn't interested in. But I was like excelling in maths, like the work that the other kids were doing. I was like two or three like books or levels or whatever. I can't quite remember what it was ahead of them. And then I got in with this one person and started missing things. And I said, let's not go to maths because maths is boring. Yeah, okay. And that happened one time and it just got worse and worse until I didn't go to school for like, I think it was nearly a year before I got caught out. And it was a big relief for me. It was like, finally I've been caught because then my dad actually drove me every day to make sure I went in. But it was too late by then because it was already like GCSE time. And yeah, so I didn't do as well as I could have at school had I attended full time. And yeah, that's a big regret.
Thank you for sharing it because I can see that it's still something that is with you and it's still hurting in a
Yeah.
way.
Well, I did go back and redo my maths GCSE because I did fail that originally and I thought, well, I need to have this for like, jobs in the future. So I went back and retook my maths.
Is that part of your healing process, you think?
No, it was more a means to an end because this
Hmm.
is where like I ended up in tech. It was kind of like, right, well, this is where I eventually want to be. What are the steps to get there? Well, the maths GCSE is going to hold me back, or I'll have to do it whilst I'm working, and yeah, it's not gonna work out. So I need to get that first. So yeah, it was more a means to an end. But I was really pleased that the tutor I had at the time, she wanted to put me in for the higher paper, and I was like, no, 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 I just need the pass. I don't want to like risk failing the higher paper. And she's like, no, you will definitely pass the higher paper. Please let me put you in for it. I was like, no. So I just did the regular paper, and I
And
think I was I think it was like 12 marks away from a perfect score, which annoyed me. And I'm like, I almost had a perfect score.
you mentioned the sensory issues, right? And we discussed the difficulties with the socializing. How do these show up today on a daily basis? And how often do you feel that those challenges are now misunderstood or minimized by others?
So for me, the biggest one is sound. Sound's a real struggle for me. So if I go into a situation where there's a lot of people who are talking, I very quickly get overwhelmed and like need to leave, or yeah, it's going to make me feel ill, and I might end up eventually having a meltdown, but that would be like privately at home. So I don't put myself in those situations. If I can avoid something like that, I will, but obviously it comes up. So, at work, there might be a big like meeting that's got 400 people and I can't really avoid that. So I use like loop earbuds and try and like arrive as close to when it actually starts so I can avoid all of that, like people talking at the same time and getting overwhelmed. But, it's been really good at work that, they're very understanding of that. So it's not that much of an issue for me. But I think that's more because I avoid things. If somebody said, let's go down the pub, I'd be like, no, no, you go down the pub. I'm fine. I'll stay.
And I guess there are situations where you can't avoid them and it ends up being like overwhelming for your system. So, how do you regulate in those instances where something really hits your system hard and you need to bring down the alert level?
Okay, so depending on the situation, like, I'll always have something to fidget with. So I've got like a fidget ring that spins around. It's brilliant because it doesn't look like a fidget toy. And same with like I'll have bracelets that I can spin, and they're like bead ones, so I can spin the individual beads as well. But if I was in a situation where that's not helping because the noise is really extreme, then I'd just make an excuse that I need the bathroom. And I'd probably go there to just like breathe, get away from all the noise and try and calm and regulate that way.
And we explored a bit of your childhood, and you said that you were diagnosed in your late 20s, sort of thing. So, how did you get into tech? How did you arrive at this point? Did you always know that this is what you wanted to do?
I don't know about always know, but it was always in my life. Growing up, my dad's really into computers. That's like a side hustle for him. He builds them, repairs them, absolutely adores like anything to do with tech. So he always tried to get me involved in that as a child, and it's like,
Hmm.
no, I want to play with my Barbies, Dad. I'm not. I want to build a computer with you. But as I got older, like I did like get into it a little bit more, and yeah, once I got sort of teen years, started going on the internet and looking at websites, and it's like, how do these things work though? And that made me like look into coding and say, oh, I really want to be able to do this. And I signed up to a coding course with the Open Uni. This is probably skipping ahead a little bit. Like there's a lot of years in between. Like I got married, had a baby, was raising her. She was about 3 when I did the Open Uni course. But the Open Uni
Uh-huh.
course was more like the design. It was like, oh, don't use these colors together. And I'm like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I kind of put it on the back burner. So maybe you just got to be like a genius to actually do code. And then I kept playing around with sites, literally just, okay, so here's what the code looks like. If I delete this, what happens? Okay, breaks it. Let's put that back. And just playing around with it and figuring things out that way. And I ended up building websites for like little charities and local businesses, like my daughter's play group. Like they asked me to build one. So just that's how I really got into it and like developed some skills and then moved away from that. But I came back to it like recently. I started, it was in 2020 because of COVID that like decimated the industry I was working in. And yeah, I just thought, well, I need to look at something else. So again, I don't know why I went back to the Open Uni because I didn't have a good experience with that before. But I looked up and they had a free course that actually said it was a coding course, and it was. And I spent the whole day on it, like just going through the whole course. And really, I think I did irritate my husband and daughter at the time because I was like, look what this does. Look at this code I've just written. Look what it does. Right, type your name in, watch what happens. And they were like, this is a bit sad. And I'm like, no, look, I wrote that. I made it do that. See all the questions it's asked. I wrote that. And they're like, great, great. Well done. When you think, yeah, I'm you're not interested. So I did that. And then I started looking for like proper courses and I came across Code First Girls. And they have
Hmm.
lots of like what they call MOOCs, which are 4-week courses, like intro courses on different things. So I did one of those and did another and another and did one of their challenges and came in the top 3 for that. And I thought, oh, I might actually be quite good at this. And did another one. And then I did an 8-week course. And it's like, okay, I have to do this. So I looked for like something more structured, which was a boot camp with the North Coders. So I did the 13-week boot camp, finished that, and then said, right, now I need to look for a job. And yeah, that wasn't easy because the getting into tech as a junior is like almost impossible at the moment. And I came across apprenticeships and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could find an apprenticeship. And then I had the thoughts of, I'm a bit old for an apprenticeship because when I think apprenticeship, I think like a 16-year-old who's just left school. And I'm like, maybe not for me. And then I was like, okay, just do it. It's up to the company if they think I'm too old. And I came across Compare the Market who were doing an apprenticeship and interviewed and got the job.
And, when we met, you talked about compare the market quite a lot. And you said that the interviewing for them compared to the interviews that you had before was something completely different. Can you share what was it that made you feel that way?
Okay, so this is jumping back again. Like when I first left school and was looking for a job, I went to like a recruitment place. And at the time, I had a lot of piercings, and they said to me, you need to take the piercings out or nobody's going to hire you. And I was like, well, I don't want to work somewhere that will not hire me because I've got facial piercings. So I'm not taking them out. And then when I was going for the interview with Compare the Market and with any company, I thought, I'm going to be upfront about being neurodivergent because again, I don't want a company. I don't want to work somewhere where that's going to be an issue. So I
Mm,
told them straight away, like, once I'd gone through the application and everything, and they emailed me to say I was through to the interview stage. That's when I told them, I was like, look, I'm neurodivergent. I'm just saying because, I need to know for things like if there's going to be a lot of people there and a lot of noise, it's just so I can bring my loop earbuds. I don't want to, I don't want it to be an issue. And also because I can't wear makeup because it's a sensory thing. If I put makeup on, I'm like rubbing my face, scratching. Yeah, I can't do it. So again, I wanted to be upfront about that because I thought I don't want them to think I haven't made an effort. If like there's other women there and they've got makeup on and then there's me, and they were brilliant. They were like, "That's absolutely fine. We want you to be comfortable." And they'd already said in for the interviews to just dress casual, just be comfortable, casual. And the talent manager there, she was like, if there's anything you need, any adjustments we can make, just let me know. And I was like, no, it's fine. Just letting you know about the makeup and also if you can let me know roughly how many people are going to be there, just so I know whether I'm going to need the earbuds. And yet, when I went to the interview, again, it was that sense of, I don't know, it was just really calm and I don't know, everyone was so nice and it was just really, really relaxed. And I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I went in really nervous and within 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, this is the place for me. I have to get this. And like throughout the whole thing, like the competency interview, like the people doing that, we were like just laughing and joking throughout the whole thing. That was brilliant. It wasn't like being interviewed, it's just like talking to people I'd known for a long time. Same with like the tech assessment. Again, the engineering manager who did that with me, he was brilliant. He made me feel really comfortable and was really encouraging. Like every step, it was just so welcoming. And I've never come across that before. So yeah, literally like finished the interview and when I got home, I was like saying to my husband, if I don't get that, I'm going to be devastated because that place is amazing. So thankfully, I got it, and it is an amazing place. I can't express how much that place means to me because like everybody is so encouraging and so helpful and so understanding of like not just like my neurodivergence, but of anything, like any, you know, sort of LGBTQ plus, just like absolutely anything. There's like a Black employees network. They're very welcoming of all types of people, and it's like from the top down. It's not like just like us engineers. Like literally, even the CEO is like, he's amazing.
it's refreshing to hear that because, with the several conversations that I had, it's obvious that it's a bit of a hit and miss in the companies. You might have, that specific team that is very good about that, or the company that just wants to start doing that. And then there are those companies that they don't even know what it is being neurodivergent and they end up making like serious mistakes. To hear such a positive story, I think it's great, and they do deserve the shout out. To be honest, so I'm glad I'm glad that you shared it.
Go as far as to say, like anyone who's neurodivergent, you need to work there. It really is amazing.
And you mentioned that you jumped a bit around in terms of your career. What was your career path like after university and before you ended up in tech? Because you said that it's always been part of your life, but what did you do before? Because this is another thing that I've discussed with many people, and it's the fact that we end up having like the amount of 20 lives compressed into one, apparently. So I'm curious to know how it was for you.
Yeah, so I left school and I was like, I don't know what I want to do, like most teenagers. But I knew my uncle was an accountant and he was on a really good wage. I'm like, right, that's for me then. Lots of money, I'll do that. So I thought, that's what I'll go into. And I went to college and I signed up because there's a long story behind this, but I was late signing up because I'd been told at like a careers advice thing at school that you couldn't sign up until you were 16. So my birthday's really late in August. So I wasn't actually 16 until September. So I didn't like enroll in anything. And literally, 1st of September, sent off things to like all the different colleges. And it's like, okay, well, you're a bit late. So I ended up signing up for law, business studies, maths, and accountancy, which, luckily, because at the time it's like I needed to redo the maths. And I only managed to do I think it was about 3 months there, but there was some issues at home, like, financially, so I needed to get a job and support, at home, and luckily, I managed to get a job in accountancy with no qualifications, like, that's I don't wanna say how good it was back, back in the good old days, but yeah, you could literally just go out and get a job. So yeah, I got a job in accountancy as an accounts clerk, and that was going well, but then they needed to make some redundancies, so it's kinda like, last in, first out. But I was really lucky because I finished on the Friday and I had another job on the Monday waiting in accounts. So yeah, that's what happened, and whilst I was in that second job, that's when I met my husband, and it's like, "Right, so I'm going to be moving in with him, and I'm going to be moving from Liverpool all the way down to Cambridgeshire, which very clearly remember telling my mum, "Yeah, I'm going to be marrying Nick and moving down south with him." And she said, "No, you're not. No, you're not." And I was like, "Yes, I am." I was 19 at the time, and like my daughter now is 20. I'm like, "No, I get it now. I get why." She's like, "No, you're not. You are not doing that." But yeah, it all worked out. Like, she loves my husband, and luckily he's a great man. Yeah, moved all the way down to Cambridgeshire, and like I thought, okay, I'll get a job once I've got married and got that out the way, because I wasn't bridezilla, but I like yeah, sort of planning things is a big, not a hobby, but I really get into planning things, which yeah, which is good. Like having kids, because birthday parties, yes. That if tech doesn't work out, I could become like a wedding planner or something. But yeah, so I was busy planning the wedding because we were doing it all ourselves. Like our wedding literally cost £3,000. That's just from like me doing everything and delegating. Like, right, Mum, you and your friends are gonna make the little what are they? The favors. Like
Good.
it's supposed to be sugared almonds, but I don't like those, so we had mini eggs. So
Perfect.
yeah. So because like all that time went along, and yeah, I found out the weekend before we got married that I was pregnant. So I was like, okay, well, I can't get a job now because I'm pregnant. And then yeah, I just ended up like looking after her, raising her, and then became apparent that she had additional needs, but she had like not just autism, she's got some medical needs as well. So she was like back and forth to the hospital, and yeah, I thought, right, this is not going to be easy for me. I'm not going to be able to just go into a job because she needs like me around. So I did a lot of volunteering. So like if there was, a PTA or there's this, or, yeah, I was there to help out. And then, yeah, as she grew up, she really got into dance, which was like so random because she decided that this is like a classic autistic obsession. She one summer, I think she was 6, she decided she wanted to be a model because I'd also like when I did the open uni course on web design, I also did a photography course. So she knew I had a really good camera and could take good photos. And she's like, "Mummy, can you take photos of me? I want to be a model." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I took some photos, and she said, "No, I want to be a model." And I was like, "Right, I've taken the photos. No, I want to go to like be a proper model." So I sent the photos off to an agency. They were interested, and it's kind of like, right, maybe we should get her some acting classes because they want to send her for like films and things. And she ended up doing some stuff. And we went to like a local like performing arts school, and it's they're having an open day, and we're like, yeah, we're just interested in like acting, maybe a bit of singing. And 3 hours later, we were still there because she said, "No, I want to do the next one, Mum. It's tap next. Oh, we're doing ballet." And yeah, that's how it started. And by the time she was 12, she was doing 20 hours of dance a week.
Ow.
Yeah. So it was literally she'd finish school, get in the car, and she'd eat like she'd have something to eat in the car on the journey to like dance. Because so I mean she's been all over the country dancing. Like some of her regular classes it'd take like an hour to get there because like specific classes. But anyway, yeah, because of that, I ended up helping out like a little bit at the dance schools, being a chaperone and stuff like that. And then there was a mum at like one of the dance schools that she was at. I won't go like into details, but our kids ended up being abused at one of these dance schools. And when we found out, we pulled them out. And this other mum, she was like, right, well, the only thing she was like worried about is that she wouldn't be able to do competitions anymore because the school we were moving to didn't have that kind of thing. And it was like, oh well, let's just set up a competition team. So that's what we did. We just set up a little dance club, and it's like, right, the girls will just go off and do some competitions, their own choreography, and which they literally did. We set it up in, I think it was like the July, and they did their first competition like 2 weeks later. They had half a
Wow.
dance, and they were like, right, let's just finish it off. And they had like a minute and a half of a dance that they kind of made up on the spot and came away with second place. And so they thought that was brilliant. And we just slowly built it from there. It was just like, okay, well, let's see if anybody else wants to join in, because it'd be nice if they could do group dances. And at the new school, because they didn't have a competition team, they were very supportive. They were like, oh, you can use our studio if you want to practice. Yeah, we ended up with a small team. And over the space of 4 years, it just developed into like a whole school, like ballet classes, tap, singing, crow. It just completely took off. And we had a very specific, I don't want to say tagline, but it was basically all ages and all abilities. So it didn't matter if you were 15 and you'd never danced before, you could come here and start learning to dance and go off to competitions. Because that was something that a lot of schools wouldn't allow. You had to be like a certain grade, or you had to have been dancing for a certain amount of years. And we were like, nah, just turn up, learn the dance, and off we go. We don't care if we win. We just want to have some fun. And the thing is, they did win a lot, which ruffled some feathers, because this was like kids' choreography. This was like 12 and 13-year-olds making up a dance and beating teachers who'd been doing it for decades. And I think one of the funniest ones was my daughter's secondary school. They have like A-level and GCSE students doing dance, and they always entered like the local competition as part of, it must be like part of the GCSE and the A-level, and they beat them. And that teacher was not happy. And yeah, we got a bit of grief over that, because, 12-year-olds choreography just beat your A-level choreography.
That proves that sometimes all you need is passion, right? And there are some things that are in us, and we just have to find the right space for them to thrive. And this is the exact thing that you described, like creating a space where people could feel safe. Didn't matter what they did before, they could just show up. And if they had that passion within them, they had a space at that school. And I think that it is really powerful. Like you, you, you reminded me of when I was a child. It's funny because I tried literally everything that I could when I was a child. Like I tried volleyball, tried gymnastics, and at some point, I don't even know how it came to my mind. I decided that I wanted to do dance, but I remember that trial class clearly, and I was very young. I think I wasn't even 6 years old, something like that. And I went in, and the teacher completely ignored me because she already decided that I wasn't like the right shape to do dance class. And I felt so alone and so judged. And at the end, she told my mom, no, she's not made up for this. Like she doesn't have the right shape or anything. And I thought that is brutal, and as a 6 years old, hearing that, it's yeah, it's really, really tough.
It's absolutely like, I've heard that a lot. Like even with my own daughter, like she just auditioned or was just about to audition for Ballet Associates, and her teacher at the time said, "Yeah, maybe you should encourage her not to do it because she's got quite a big bum, and I don't think." And I was like, "Yep, just shut that down now. No, she's going for it," and she went for it, and she got it. And the teacher's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, exactly. You just didn't expect it." That was what we had with the dance school that I helped run. It was all about just turn up. If you've got that passion. Like the one that really sits with me is we had a 15-year-old who joined, who'd been to other schools, and they were putting her in with 10-year-olds because she'd never danced before, and that really knocked her confidence. And we were like, "No, you're a 15-year-old. You will be with the other teenagers." And she was always like apologizing. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not very good." It's like, you're not very good. No, you just don't know the steps. You will get it. It will happen. And she went off to university to study dance. She's now got a degree in dance.
Wow, that is amazing. That is a powerful story. You said about your daughter, and you said that she's neurodivergent as well. How is that relationship? How was it bringing her up? And by then, you didn't know yet that you were autistic yet, right? When you had her. So how has it been, that journey, and how has it changed? when you got your diagnosis?
Yeah, so when I got diagnosed, it was like, right, well, obviously she's autistic as well. And even my mum said, she's like, she's literally a mini you. Like, you were exactly the same at that age because she was 7 at the time. And I was like, right, yeah, I agree. And I've said it as well about my niece, my brother, my dad, and like a few other family members. And yeah, my brother's been diagnosed, my niece has been diagnosed. My dad should be diagnosed, but he won't go for that because he's too set in his ways and won't even consider it. But he absolutely is autistic. Yeah, growing up, because this was actually like when I went through a diagnosis, that like, this was in sort of one of the things I'd written down is that I'm a very logical person. So when she would wake up and she'd had a nightmare and was crying, I'd be there going, but there are no monsters. Monsters aren't real. And then my husband would be there giving her a hug and, she's crying, oh, but daddy, it was a monster. I'm like, monsters aren't real. And yeah, so I was like explaining that this couldn't possibly happen because this isn't real and just calm down and go back to sleep. And my husband's just there hugging her. So yeah, that was like kind of the relationship. It was like I was very not cold but just logical, and like if she really needed a hug I'd give her a hug, but she's like me, she doesn't like hugs unless like she's really upset, but even then she's kind of like she doesn't like them that much. So yeah, that was like one aspect of it, but it was also that like after the diagnosis and understanding about sensory issues and stuff, I could understand where she was coming from. So there was a level to it that my husband didn't quite get. So things like he couldn't understand why she was getting upset about having her hair brushed. And I'm like, it's a sensory thing. She doesn't like the sensation of the brush on her scalp. And he's like, yeah, but why? I'm like, I can't explain it to you because you won't get it. I can, imagine if you had a hairbrush that was made of nails and you tried to, that's how it feels to her. So there was a lot of incidents like that where I could relate to what she was going through, but at the same time, there was also that logical side of my brain going, just brush your hair or whatever it is. And I had to really like fight not to just say, it's just a brush, just brush your hair. Yeah, a lot of that. And as she grew up and became a teenager, those were very hard years, like between 13 and 15. Yeah, we had a lot of discussions, arguments. I don't know how you want to say it, but yeah, anyone with a teenager will know that sort of attitude that you get, and I know everything, and yeah, clearly you don't. But then there was the sensory side of it where we would be having a discussion, not heated, like just she'd done something wrong, and we'd be explaining to her, that's not on. You're gonna have to be grounded or your phone taken off you or whatever it was, and she would get upset and be like, "Don't shout at me! Stop shouting at me!" And we'd be saying, "We're not shouting, we're just." But that's how she was processing it and hearing it. To her, we were shouting because we were upset. It wasn't the volume, it was the tone. So yeah, lots of things like that. And now as an adult herself, she's yeah, it's great. I mean, she understands me, I understand her. And like she's got a really supportive boyfriend as well who just gets her little quirks and things and understands that if she's getting upset, he notices those things. And same, like my husband does that as well. He notices, probably more so than I do, that I'm getting overwhelmed, and he will pull me out of a situation, or he will be like, right, this is too much, you need to like go and calm down because I can see you getting wound up. And I'm like really pleased that she's also got a partner like that as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it, because I think it's great for people to hear that there is this possibility. And I think when you're neurodivergent and and particularly when you're late diagnosed, right, and you spend your entire life questioning yourself, there is a lot of self hate, self doubt. It's easy to fall into wrong relationships, and it's easy to just settle for something that is less than what we deserve. And it's great to see that instead, like something else, it is possible when you have the right support and when you truly know yourself. And that's why I thank you for sharing your story and your daughter's story. What are those traits that for you, like you really love about yourself? And what are the traits that you really still struggle with?
I'd say planning, multitasking. Like I get that a lot at work. People can't understand how I can do the day job, do my apprenticeship because I got like ahead with the apprenticeship. side of things and how I can do so many like other things like with the communities and even things like this podcast. It's like, where do you find the time? I'm like, I'm just really good at multitasking. That's like a real strength of mine. Pattern recognition. That was like, yeah, I won't go into it, but like one of the people at the dance school, like the owner, should I say, like she, she did basically own it, and I just ran it. But she had a lot of conflict with another dance school. Yeah, it's a very long story, but she couldn't understand why a particular thing might happen. And I would just go through social media and be like, right, because this happened and this situation, this event, and this and this and this, that's why that's happened. And she'd be like, how? How do you just know that? I'm like, it's all there. You just got to see the patterns and see why that person has said this and followed that person and done that and created this. And yeah, it's easy to follow. So yeah, I'd say those are strengths. And also things like being really loyal and honest, sometimes to like my detriment. But I'd say things that I don't like so much is probably stuff that I can't help anyway. So it's the not being able to tolerate noise is really hard, and that the knock-on effect of that. So again, using work as an example, I sit in the quiet area, which is brilliant because it is literally quiet. There's nobody else there. You can hear a pin drop. But the problem is I don't get that, maybe that like social bond and the other team members get, because they all sit like near each other and might have the odd like little joke, and I don't get to do that. And it's kind of like, it's hard and annoying, but at the same time, if I was to go and sit where everybody else sits, I might have that little bit of a joke and a laugh, but then my work's going to suffer and I'm going to suffer because of the level of sound.
Yeah. And we talked about the traits and how they're also linked with the social aspect. So there is one question that I ask anybody that has been um, on the podcast. How do you feel about chit chats and small talks?
Well, I can do it. That's like a misconception. I think that, autistic people can't do small talk. We can. I don't want to like just generalize, but we don't want to. I think that's how I feel. It's like if someone starts with, "Hey, how was your weekend?" My brain just immediately goes, "What do you want? Just get to it. Why I don't care. Just tell me what you want, what it is you want to ask me." And like, there's been times where, well, especially I've had things on LinkedIn where someone will send me a message like, "Oh, hey, I've seen your LinkedIn." I'm like, okay, wait for it. So I was just wondering if you could refer me, and like, there it is.
Mm. This is one of the reasons why I'm starting to think that I might be autistic as well. Like there are many things, but this is one of the things. The pattern recognition that you have described, it's one of the things, for example, if I watch a movie and I start looking at that, I'm like, the very beginning of the movie, I'm like, pretty sure that it's going to end up that way because I've already seen the sign. And my husband is usually like, no, you can't know this early into the movie. I'm like, just wait and see.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And the small talk, it's like, it's not that I can do it, I can fake it beautifully, but in my head there is that question about, what do you really want to know? So how was your weekend? Because if you ask me that, I'm going to tell you the full unhinged story, and I'm not sure that you want to hear it.
Yeah, I have to do that all the time when someone asks me that. I'm like, don't tell them absolutely it. Don't tell them like a blow by blow account of what you did over the weekend. They don't care. They're just being nice. So I just have to like really like bite my tongue and be like, yeah, it's fine. How was yours?
Yeah, it in my head, it's like I have a script now when people ask certain things. It's like, "Oh, how was your weekend?" Lovely. In reality, like there is this full movie in my head that is like, yeah, we did this and we did that. And I can talk about my obsessions and how I stayed up until 2 a.m. I don't know, doing my latest obsession. So it's really interesting how it seems like none of us can actually manage it properly. I think of all the people that I talked to so far, only one said, yeah, no, I like them. I was like, okay, it's good because it's statistics. It's, but I have one last question for you, and it's, how are you today?
Today, right. Oh, see, this is one of those like almost a small talk question. My brain immediately went, oh, well, I'm quite tired because this happened and that happened. And I did this at work. And yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
No, today, what I mean is in this particular moment of your life.
I'm really good. really, really happy.
And to people that are listening and, that they might be thinking of getting a diagnosis or they already have one and they're struggling, what advice could you give them?
Okay, for those thinking of going for a diagnosis, just do it. Just go, see what they say. And I'd say those who are struggling, be a little bit easier on yourself. Your brain is different and you're going to react differently and you might struggle with things that other people don't. And that's okay because we're all different and everybody has their own struggles.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And sorry I lied. There was another question after the last one, but I really wanted to get that in. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for sharing your story so honestly. I really enjoyed this time together.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Suspicious Brain podcast will come back soon with a new episode and new stories to share. So stay tuned and follow me now, before you forget.